Effectively, what I want to do tonight is an application of what we did last night. I want you to look at this issue that we looked at last week. We looked at this idea of strategy. And in terms of strategy, this little diagram sizes up all the stuff we talked about last week. Okay. First of all, we've got this step one, which is really part of a 3-step planning phase, which is really the first stage of any strategy. And that is, we think about, what have we got that's good? What have we got that we need to improve? What have we got going on out there in the world that's good? And what have we got going on out in the world that could be a problem? This is officially known as the SWOT analysis. And the SWOT analysis looks at internal strengths and weaknesses of the owners or the business. And what we mean by strengths and weaknesses is relative strengths and weaknesses. What do you do that's better? Or what do you have that's better than anyone else? Or what do you have that's worse than anyone else? So strengths and weaknesses are relative. You have control over them. You can adjust them. You can change them. You can develop them. You know, it is there for you to manage. The back half of the SWOT analysis is looking at the external environment. And it says, what's going on out there? And if we look at what's going on out there, there are two basic things that come of what's going on out there. There's opportunities that come of that. So the O stands for opportunities. Here are all the wonderful things out there that we can take advantage of. You know, people, if we're in the funeral business, for example, and people are getting older, that's a wonderful thing for the funeral business, right? Because people are eventually going to die. If we're looking at the world out there and we're saying, well, people are really into computers now, and we're busy selling computers, there you go. There's an opportunity. So opportunities are things that are out there in the world that you as an entrepreneur or you as a business person have to identify as potential things that you can hook your wagon to in order to benefit yourself and combine it with the strengths that you have in order to take the advantage out of that. The last thing that we look at in terms of the external is the threats. What is out there that could be problematic for your business? And if it popped out, it's like a boogeyman. If it popped out, what would we do about it? Okay, so threats are some of them are obvious. You know, if you're a ski hill and the threat is that there's no snow, okay, that's obvious. There's nothing you can do about it. It's not as if you can change the fact that snow falls or snow doesn't fall. Maybe you can make snow, yes, but ultimately you're reliant on the weather. Other threats come out of the air that you have no idea about anything about. COVID-19 is a classic example. No business is really prepared for this. And as a result, many businesses are suffering because of it. Because again, they really thought that this sort of thing is relatively impossible to happen. And most people out there would say, yeah, that's not going to happen. So it would not be part of the consideration of potential threats. So your threats, some of them are obvious, some are not so obvious. And that creates some challenges for business. So that's the very first step, is identifying out there the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. From that, then you say, okay, well, considering that I've identified some of the things that I do really well and some of the things that I'm not so good at, I should be able to identify some goals. What is it that I want to do? What is it? What is the opportunity that presents itself to me? So we can set goals, you know, to sell a product to a customer, for example. So these goals, most businesses have goals. And once you've done the SWOT analysis, you should be able to determine what potential goals will work for you. Because you'll look at the strengths and weaknesses, you'll look at the opportunities and threats, and out of that, some clear goals should come. From the goals, you're going to say, you know, not all those goals are great. Some of those goals you can make some money on. Some of those goals you can make a lot of money on. Some of those goals you can make no money on. So you want to identify the goals that have the most money-making potential for you if you're in a business. So this is what we call really defining your goals further. And we do that through a couple of ways. We select the target market. Here are the people that we want to sell to because they're the ones that have the most potential for growth. And we kind of say, we're going to go after that target, but we're going to ignore that other target. We're going to say, this is the group of people that we want to sell to because they're the ones that have the most potential. So that's what we call a target market. And target markets could consist of looking at people where they live, how old they are, what gender they are, all kinds of things. We also, in terms of setting these goals, we're going to think about our unique selling point of our product. What is it that is so great about our product that's unique? What is something unique? If you think of the cell phone, the Apple iPhone, or the Samsung Galaxy, or whatever you got, you think of that. Back in 2007, when the official iPhone, the first iPhone was brought to market, Apple really set some goals, and they set some target markets, and they certainly had a unique selling proposition that was different than the other phone. This glass screen, the idea of a touch screen, was different. And that's what they really targeted on, was being able to set some goals based on that uniqueness. And effectively, from there, you position the product. Now, the third thing that we have to do in our plan or thinking about selling stuff is define what we call the marketing mix. And the marketing mix is made up of really four things. The product itself, how should we sell it, what should it look like, how much should we sell it for. These sorts of things are considerations for the product. We got to look at the price, this cost of it, revenue from it, these sorts of things. The promotion, how are we going to sell it? How are we going to make people aware of it? And where we're going to sell it to, the place, how are we going to market this? From those first three steps, we should develop, we really do develop a plan. And that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to look at this step 1, 2, and 3 in detail in terms of your business idea. So I want you to consider a business idea of your own. So whatever you think about that you'd like to do, and all of you have a certain trade that you would obviously focus on, because again, that is building on your strengths. Here's what you can do better than anyone else. And we're going to develop a strategy for it. We're going to go through the process of developing a strategy for it. And I'm probably not going to be able to develop a hard strategy for it in a deep sense, but superficially, we're going to look at the process of developing a strategy. Those first three steps are really that thinking about stage. I'll call it the thinking about. There's a lot of work that needs to be done in those three steps to think about what you're doing. Once you have it all thought about, then you can put it into action. That's what that implementation stage is, which is really the doing it. Okay, we've got this wonderful plan. We're going to put this plan in place now and see what happens. And the idea of the see what happens leads us into the control phase. We obviously have some desire to see something happen. We're going to sell a lot of product. We're going to meet a certain goal. We're going to do whatever we thought we were going to do. The control phase is going to assess whether or not we're actually doing that. So as we're going along, we're constantly going to be saying, is this working? Is this working? What do we need to change? How can we change it? And for any business, there's obviously going to be changes as you go along. You're going to discover, for example, that the market that you thought you were selling to is probably not the best market, or you're going to change the product a little bit or do things like that. So let's take a look at this process. We're going to do it one step at a time. So we're going to start up here in this section here of step 1. And I want you to take a couple of minutes to think about a SWOT analysis for your business or you. And we're looking at really the first part, the S and W, which is the strengths and weaknesses. Ask yourself 2 questions. What skills do you have, or what does your business have that's different or better than others? So I want you to take a couple minutes now to think about what are some of the things that you can do that's better, or you think you can do better than anyone else? What are that unique things that you can build, that you can bring to this? Once you get that done, I want you to think about what are some of the things you're not so good at, that you're a little bit concerned about in terms of your weaknesses. What do you need to improve on in your business, and how can you do this? So take 3 or 4 minutes now to give that some consideration. And if you got a piece of paper, just jot it down. Okay? So let's move on to the second part. The second part of the SWOT analysis looks at the external environment, what's going on externally. And when we think about external events, we think that's stuff that we have no control over. It happens, okay? And the good thing is that good things happen, and we can build on those good things. The bad thing is bad things happen, and we got to prepare for them. So what do we do in order to kind of counter those? So those are the kinds of things we need to think about in our planning. So what I've got is a bunch of questions here that kind of look at the yin and the yang, okay? What's good? What is the opportunity? What is the threat? So just to kind of frame your thoughts, what trends in the marketplace, what are the trends in your chosen business, and what ones favor you and what ones don't necessarily favor you? Is there something all good for this? Is there something that is potentially problematic? What are the competitors doing? What are the competitive trends? What are your competitors doing, that could benefit you? They could be doing an awful job at their job or not finding that niche that you've thought of at all. Or you could think about what are the things that can threaten you. We look at number 3, what are the demographics? And demographics deal with people's ages, where people live, their gender, these types of statistical things that we look at. Are demographics of your market in your favor? If you're selling kids' toys and there's not a lot of kids anymore, that's not working in your favor. You got to ask yourself, are the people that buy my products, are there more of them or less of them? So what's in your favor in terms of the demographics? Or what's working against you? The fourth thing that you want to think about is there some sort of technology that's out there that can help you? Or is there a technology that can work against you? If you're into the business of doing transcription, okay, let's assume that you got a business where you're going to type up what people say. But there's an app for that, and that app can do it for free. That technology could be a real problem for you if you're in that business. And what are the political or legal trends that may help you or work against you? Is there something in terms of the political environment or the legal environment out there that can help you or hinder you? Now, these are the normal ones that we look at when we look at opportunities and threats. We look at, what's going on in the marketplace in terms of the culture, in terms of the trends, what's going on in terms of our competition, what's going on in terms of demographic, what's going on in terms of technology, and what's going on in terms of political legal. So I want you to take a few minutes, now 4 minutes, to take a look at those from your business's perspective. Okay, so I'm hoping you had enough time to give that some thought. But really, that's, in terms of the planning, that's what we do for our first step, is really to think about those strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Now, we take that, and after some consideration of, yeah, I understand, or no, I don't understand, or here's what I got to do in terms of improve, or here are some of these threats that I got to think about, maybe there's more. Once you've done this first step, then you can start, okay, let's analyze it to see what can we do? What can we do out of this? So this is really moving in step 2, which is set some goals for the product. Now, so let's look at this concept of setting goals. Goals are where we want to go. So we're setting really a target. So if you're out on a shooting range, for example, you try to get it in the center of the target, or if you're playing darts or something like that. And really that is the goal, to get it right in the target. In business, what you need to do is to think about it from the point of view of SMART. This is an acronym that's used in order to look at each of your goals and assess whether they're good goals or not. First of all, your goals, any goal that you set should be specific. I want to do this. So a specific goal is distinct. It defines how much the goal is possible and contains no ambiguous language. I want to make $100,000 this year. Okay? That's a very specific goal. I either do it or I don't. Okay? So specifics are important for goals. They got to be specific. I want to get better off. Well, is $1 better off? Is $2 better off? What is better off? It's an ill-defined term. However, $100,000 is a defined term. And that leads into the M, which is measurable. You need to be able to measure and to see if you actually got where you want it to go. So you can think of this as being the bullseye. The bullseye is a slightly different color than the rest of the dartboard or the shooting range or the curling rink or anything else. You're either there or not, and it's very measurable. So measurement gives us some feedback on if we know we actually met the goal. So when I write a specific goal like to make $100,000, that is measurable because I can determine how close I got. If I made $99,000, I did really close. If I made $22,000, I didn't. Okay? So the measurability is important. So hard numbers are important for measurability or hard dates or things like that. The third one, which a lot of people have trouble with, is it realistically attainable? If you start a business today and you say, well, I want to make $100,000. Well, if your market is 10 people, making $100,000 is not attainable. So you need to ask yourself, if I set a goal of $100,000 a year, is that attainable based on the market that I have, the potential size of the market, the products I'm selling, my capacity as a manufacturer, or, is there enough business to make $100,000 a year? So attainability is an important part of a goal. Your goal should be reasonably attainable with effort, okay? So, you can set goals too high. I want to make $10 million this first year. Probably too high. But you want it to be reasonable enough to say, yeah, I can actually do it. And the fourth factor is relevant. Is the goal relevant? Realistically, goals are so important. Is it something that you can actually do in the time frame? Is it reasonable? I want to grab 60% of the market share in an industry that has 20 competitors in the first year. Is that realistic? Probably not. So I got to be realistic. When we really want to think, is this a realistic, relevant goal? So every goal we set, we need to put a measure on it and say, is this relevant? And finally, timing is so important. You need to set the times on your goal. I want to make $100,000 this year. So the time is this year. If I say I want to make $100,000, sure enough, it's measurable. But over what time? 20 years, 30 years, 100 years? So we need to be, again, realistic. And it still rolls back to this relevancy. Can you actually do it? So all goals should be set with this SMART acronym in mind. Is it specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and what is the time that you've put in place for it? Here, for example, is a little better description than what I can do.
Regardless if it is professional or personal, we all struggle sometimes to achieve our goals. Many times our struggle is not because of a lack of effort, but rather how our goals have been structured. Anytime you set a goal, if you find yourself struggling while working towards a goal, keep in mind the word SMART. SMART is an acronym that can be used to help evaluate and add structure to your goals. SMART stands for specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and time-bound. SMART begins with asking yourself the degree to which a goal is specific. This is arguably the most important part of establishing or evaluating a goal. The less specific a goal, the more difficult it is to determine how long the goal should take to complete or how to measure success. Consider the difference between a goal to get healthy versus the goal to lose weight versus the goal to lose 10 pounds. The goal to get healthy is much less specific than a goal to lose 10 pounds. The next question to ask, how is the goal measured? What determines success? Some goals may be best measured by a simple yes or no, such as the goal of climbing to the top of a mountain, while other goals are better measured by using metrics such as the goal to lose 10 pounds. The key to measurement is making sure that in whatever way the goal is measured, it accurately reflects success. For instance, if you do not have access to a scale, then measuring weight loss will be difficult and less accurate. An alternative measure may be to track how many inches you have lost around the waist. But to what extent does this accurately reflect the goal? Without access to a reliable way of measuring weight, we may want to consider buying a scale or restructuring our goal. Actionable is not asking yes or no, but how will the goal be achieved? What is our action plan? Do we have the resources and capabilities required to achieve success? If not, what are we lacking? Well-designed goals provide clarity of action. If the actions required to achieve a goal are unclear, or there are a large number of actions that need to be taken, we should consider breaking down the main goal into manageable, actionable sub-goals. In isolation, any single goal is relevant, but in life, we most often are in the process of pursuing multiple goals. A common issue we face is having too many goals at the same time or pursuing the wrong goals. With this in mind, we need a mechanism to help us monitor our goals to make sure we are pursuing our most relevant goals at any given moment in time. One technique is to place goals in a matrix that looks at effort required versus perceived value of achieving the goal. Not always, but most of the time we will want to focus our energy on low-effort, high-value goals. Another technique is to use the Pareto principle, also known as the 80-20 rule. Ask, which are the 20% of goals that will provide me with 80% of my return? The last thing we want to make sure is that goals are time-bound. By including a specific date by which a goal should be accomplished, it helps provide incentive and allows us to monitor progress. Consider the difference between the goal to lose 10 pounds and the goal to lose 10 pounds in 10 weeks. Simply by including an element of time, we can now calculate how much we should be losing each week, and if after 5 weeks we have only lost 1 pound, we can revisit our action plan. Be wary of any goal that is open-ended, such as the common goal to learn a foreign language. Last, it is important to reinforce that goal setting is not an event. It is an ongoing process of action, evaluation, and revision. It is not about lowering goals or standards to ensure success. It is about recognizing goals are dynamic because life is dynamic. We do not live in a static world. Life happens. A goal that is relevant today may be irrelevant tomorrow. When using SMART, stay flexible and motivated by setting aside time to reevaluate your goals on a regular basis.
Okay, so that kind of summarized the whole process of goal setting very succinctly. So in terms of setting goals for your business, from this assessment, we should be able to better set some goals. And from a marketing point of view, product in the marketplace. Your goal at this stage should be to develop a description of the current state of the marketplace. It should answer the following questions. What are your products and services or product service lines? What is the dollar sales of your markets? What is your sales and distribution setup? What geographic area do you sell to? What's your audience in terms of population, demographics, income, and so on? What competitors exist? And historically, how well have your products sold? Now, obviously, if you've never sold a product before, that wouldn't count. But those are some things you need to look at when you set your goals is, okay, what is the market? What am I selling? How big is it? How much money is there? Is it something that requires a lot of work to get it in place? That drives you to this, which is called a unique selling proposition, which is, I am an electrician. I'm a certified industrial electrician. My business does industrial electrician work. And I am the only one in my region that has the red seal. Okay? That's what we could consider something of a unique selling proposition. We're the only one. There might be other companies that do similar work, but if we're the only one that has the red seal, that's one of the key things. Is it valued by our customers? It depends. If it's individuals, may not be. If it's industry, and industry has to meet ISO requirements, that might be highly valuable. So it really depends on what your customers value. So from a business point of view, you want to think about what do you love most about your products and services? What special skills or knowledge do you have? What makes your customers come to you instead of the competitors? How do your customers benefit by purchasing your product over someone else's? And what aspects do we generally highlight when we describe business to strangers? So this is really why you should buy from me. Why you should buy from me. And this is something I see chambers of commerce all over Newfoundland and all over Canada talking about buy local. But they just talk about buy local. They don't say why you should buy local. And the focus really needs to be on what's the unique selling proposition that a local business can offer that provides something of benefit to the customer. And that's what you got to think about when you set your goals. One of the things that is commonly used as a unique selling proposition is a logo or a brand. People will think of it. If you look at that logo down there at the bottom of the screen, I ask you, what is it? And what does it mean to you? Any thoughts? Well, it's the Nike logo. So, but what does it say? What does it tell you in terms of quality, in terms of these sorts of things? What does that logo tell you? Does it continue?
You're going to get a top quality athletic apparel.
Yeah. It speaks to something. It speaks to something. And that's the idea really of a logo, to speak to something. So people, not only do they see a swoosh, they see a mental image of the unique selling proposition of the company. And, really good logos do that. They basically will take that unique selling proposition and box it up into something people can physically see. So one good idea when you set a goal in terms of planning a business is to have some sort of a logo that people can recognize that would want to get them to come in and buy from you. Another thing that's often done when you set goals is to consider this concept of a target market. That is, look, there's a whole bunch of people out there that can buy from you, but who's really going to buy from you? And that target market is the people that will really buy from you. You could target it in terms of age, in terms of income, in terms of any number of things. But they're the ones that's going to provide the best opportunities for you because they're the ones that's going to buy. So in marketing, this is called segmenting. You basically chop the market up and say, okay, this group of people is a fairly big group. They're all industry. Okay, that segment, that's the industrial customer. The residential customer is a segment as well. They're small. 80% of my business will come from the industrial customer, 20% from the residential. So that's an example of segmenting. And you're going to say to yourself, well, only 20% of my customers are residential, and I only have so many hours in the day. I'm not going to focus on them. I'm going to focus on the industrial. That's where the money is. That's where my focus is. That's where my strengths are. And you can think about target markets or segmenting along geographic lines, demographic lines, behavioral lines. What do people like, and lifestyle. What is it that really drives them? If you think about Costco, for example, what is Costco in terms of their market segment? They're not located in rural Newfoundland or rural Canada. They're located in cities, right? So they're really focused on urban. The demographics, who goes in there? Do you think your grandmother is going to need a box of cornflakes that has, 50 servings in it? Or a giant box of Tide? Probably not. Demographics that, if you look in Costco and their demographics tend to be families. So middle-class families at that. So what they're looking for, and in terms of income, Costco has an interesting concept that it's kind of, in one respect, is repulsive. Costco, you got to buy a membership. So the thing is with Costco, what it does is not everybody can go in there. And I always say it keeps poor people out. Walmart doesn't have that. But Costco, everybody in there tends to be of the same income level, relatively, same age, not breaking down by gender too much, but there tend to be a certain group that is very easily identifiable. And Costco have made their killing by focusing on that target. That's who they sell to. We could also think of behavior. You know, the beer companies have been caught up in behavioral target marketing for years. They're going after, well, demographic, young people tend to drink beer, younger people, but also fun people like fun, social, this type of thing. You don't see too many solitary beer drinkers in the beer commercials, right? And the lifestyle as well, they would play on that. So you could think about, you know, breaking down your market along those basic lines. So what I'd like you to do is to do exactly that. In terms of setting goals, the best opportunity for your business is what? If you think about where's the best geographic area, where's the best or who's the best or what is the best demographic, is there some sort of behavior that we would sell to? You know, what is, I'm thinking back to these loyalty, attitude, readiness to buy, usage rates, who's using it, and also lifestyle. What type of lifestyle do our customers have? So take 3 minutes to consider that. And not necessarily all of them would apply to your type of business. I'll just bring it back up here, you know, geography, location, demographics, age, behavior, lifestyle, a little bit better defined. That will help you that will help kind of figure out where your goals should focus on. Okay, so we've got, I'm just going back here now. We've looked at, okay, SWOT analysis. We've looked at the idea of setting our goals. Now we need to think about, okay, if we've got our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, we've channeled through our goals that come out of that. Now we're going to say, well, what are the things that we can manage? Again, when we think about this final step, we've got to think about defining the actual product that we're selling. So this is the stuff that's absolutely within our control. And it breaks it down into its 4 elements. What is the product? The actual products and services that we sell. From a marketing perspective, the product, anything that we offer. It doesn't need to be a physical product. It could be a service as well. So what is it we sell? And that seems like a simple question. We really need to think about it, though, because what is it we're selling? If we're a service technician, you're probably selling speed of getting your stuff. If your washer breaks, for example, and you're a service technician, what we're selling is convenience of someone coming to your house and fixing it. We're also thinking about price. Price is the money that we're going to charge for this, the consideration that needs to go into it. And we need to think about the pricing. We talked about pricing previously. We need to think about place. Now, place just means how are we going to get it out to customers? How are we going to distribute it? And where are we going to sell it to? Are we going to sell it in stores? We're going to sell it online? We're going to sell it door to door? Are we going to, fly it to people? Are we going to drive it to people? How big is it? That's going to make a difference. And finally, the promotion, which is really the communication. How do we make people aware of it? What are the features of the product, the advantages of the product, and the benefits to the potential buyer? What is it they're getting from it in terms of the benefit? And those are the things that we want to be able to communicate to buyers. And successful products do that very clearly. What is it that you're getting out of this, and how can it benefit you? So if we define our marketing mix, I want you to take a few minutes now to think about your business. What is the product? And generally, what is the price? Is it higher, lower than the competitors? The place, where would you sell it to? What is your selling area? And the promotion. How are you going to make people aware it exists? So take 3 or 4 minutes to think about that. I'll just flip back here just in case. Okay. So you should have some idea from this of what you're going to do in terms of your product, your price, your place, and promotion. In terms of the next step, we're talking about, okay, here's our plan for the product, the price, place, and promotion. And from that, we're going to develop a budget. Now, we think about our finance chapter, when we looked at that, our finance module. So our budget is really an idea of, I'm going to say it's an educated guess. That's probably a good word for it. What we need to do when we're starting off a business is to estimate what are our expenses. It's probably easiest to estimate our expenses first. What are they going to be? And how much, and the goal is really to determine how much money we're going to need in order to get started. And then our goal would be to say, what is our predicted revenue? So looking at developing a budget, what we'll normally do is come up with a sheet that's like this, okay? And every business will be different in terms of potential expenses, but I've just outlined some of the common ones here. So as I said, I think it's easier to start with your expenses first. So how much money do you think you'll need for an accountant? And you can find out from accountants how much it costs. Bank service charges, how much? Bank services charges are always more than what you think, because a lot of people use debit and Interact and these sorts of things now. Those fees on that are pretty heavy. Credit card fees, delivery charges, utilities, taxes, health insurance, hiring costs, right on down through. So effectively what you're doing is you're taking this, and it's usually for a year. It doesn't need to be, but it is a defined time, right? It could be a week, could be a month, could be a year, could be 5 years. But the fact of the matter is most commonly see this done for a year, and in terms of the roll-up, but they could be broken down by month too. So effectively what we're saying is we expect to spend this much this year on this item. We're going to put all those down. We're going to do our best guess estimates. And our best guesstimates, having gone this far through your planning process, you're going to have an idea of what your expenses are. And you'll be able to estimate, and you'll tally it up, and you'll say, okay, well, look, this is $300,000 in expenses. So right off the bat, it's giving you a good handle on how much money you need to spend in order to achieve the goals that you've set out just prior. You're also going to consider your revenues, and you're going to say, well, what kind of sales? Well, price times quantity. If you're selling units, how much you're charging for it times how many you plan to sell will give us an idea on revenue. There are other revenue sources too, interest income, investment income, some other type of income. You add up your total income. So you say, okay, this comes to whatever it is. You're going to compare your total income to your total expenditures. Odds are in the first year, your expenditures are going to way exceed your income. But what can that tell you? It's going to tell you how much money you're going to need from an investor or a bank or something like that in order to float your business, to get your business moving. So this process really takes place after you've done all of the, okay, here's our marketing, here's our goals. Once we've gone through that, we should be able to put some numbers to things and create a budget, which is a planned revenue and planned expenditures for the period of time we're dealing with. From a control point of view, which is the control point of view, you want to be able to keep this in mind so that as you're moving through your year, you can kind of say, okay, where are our actuals and what did we predict and what is our actuals, and look for the difference. And the reason that we do that is to really figure out, what's off. Say we're spending a lot more on something than we plan to. We're going to have to take a look at why that's happening. Having done all of that, you have the basis for, because what we've done is, I'm just going back here to bring up this original graphic that I had. What we've done is we've looked for our opportunities, strengths and weaknesses. We've set up some goals. We've gone through and we've developed a marketing mix plan and a revenue expense plan. This is our plan. This is our plan. We haven't done anything yet. We're going to have to implement it and then check it to make sure it's working. But what we do in business, what normally happens in business in terms of a plan, is we are going to use all of this information that we've done here tonight to create what's called a marketing plan. A marketing plan is part of a business plan. It is how we're going to do these things. So, the current business situation, set up our goals, determine what kind of money we need in order to do it, identify any gaps we have, and figure out who we're going to sell to, how much we're going to sell, and then to create the action plan. So this marketing plan is what comes out of this. And this is a very important document to help guide you in your planning for a business. It's really a roadmap. Okay? And that roadmap contains all of these things that we've looked at here tonight. What's going on in terms of our plan, understand the customers, talk about our marketing research that we talked about in our very first module. What have we found out about our potential customers? Be able to figure out where our target market is going to be. Our marketing mix decisions. That's the plan. That's going to go and look at what's going on externally. This is our opportunities and threats, in terms of competition, legal, political, demographic, and so on. The SWOT analysis. And what we want to do in terms of where we are, our vision, where do we see ourselves? What do we do? What are our key objectives or strategy? The marketing plan document really encompasses that right there. Everything that is in this document here, in this graphic, is what this part of the business plan called the marketing plan is all about. Where do we see ourselves? How are we going to get there? And that then moves into the implementation phase, which is going out now and getting the resources. So you're going off to your bank to look for money. You're designing the marketing organization, hiring the people you need. You've had some weaknesses. You didn't have an accountant, for example. You didn't have a lot of accounting background. You needed the services of an accountant. Well, designing the marketing organization is all about that stage. Developing the schedules. When is things going to be done? How much is it going to cost? Who's going to do it? Who's going to be responsible for it? And then the execution of the plan. And finally, we got this controlling phase, which is really looking at comparing the results. Did we do or did we achieve what we hoped to achieve? And we're doing that as we go along. Okay, this is not something we're doing after a year. We're going to look at this and see if we did it. We're always doing this. And this is where they talk about in that video. It's constant revising. Because you got to act on deviations as they happen. You don't want to wait until it's all over and realize, whoops, I missed that. So this part of what we call the marketing analysis, this is so important for small business. And this is something that you really need to sit down. It's a paper exercise. I agree that, it's not the most interesting thing in the world to do. But if you think about it before you actually do it, it can probably lead to a much greater chance of success. Any questions? I'm just going to bring back our video now. Oh, there we are. Any questions on that?